Hello, Pioneer viewers. Tensions are rising again in Donetsk, one of the most critical fronts of the war. The Ukrainian army's unmanned systems forces have made headlines with a move that could fundamentally shift the balance on the front lines. Their latest operation dealt a major blow to the Russian army's heavy armored forces. The destruction of 5 Russian tanks in clashes on Donetsk eastern front is seen not only as a military success, but also as an important signal for the future of the war. The development clearly demonstrates the growing impact of Ukraine's investments in unmanned technologies on the battlefield. Since the war began, both sides have been trying to develop new technology-based tactics. However, this time Ukraine's new attack model, which integrates unmanned aerial and ground systems, took the Russian army's armored units by surprise. Initial images from the conflict zone show that the destroyed tanks were modernized T-90 and T-72 models. This could seriously undermine Russia's armored superiority on the front lines. Experts note that this attack will affect the maneuverability of Russian troops not only on the Donetsk front, but across the entire eastern line. In the coming minutes, we will take a detailed look at how this operation unfolded, what new tactics Ukraine used to deploy this unmanned system, and how Russia attempts to respond to this attack. How are the heavy armored losses suffered by the Russian army changing the morale balance on the front lines? Could Ukraine's new technological move be a turning point in the course of the war? Let's take a look at the developments together. The Pioneer is back. Don't forget that you can support us by subscribing and liking our videos in celebration of our return. The Ukrainian unmanned systems forces inflicted heavy losses on the Russian army in recent operations on the Donetsk front. As a result of targeted drone attacks carried out in recent days, 5 Russian tanks and several multiple rocket launchers were destroyed. The development highlights both the balance on the ground and the critical level of losses suffered by Russia's armored units. According to information provided by Ukrainian sources, the operation was carried out in the eastern part of Donetsk, in the area between Avdiivka and Marinka, where intense fighting took place. The unit, known as the Unmanned Systems Forces and operating directly under the Ukrainian General Staff, has significantly increased its activity on the front line in recent months. In particular, the new generation FPV drones used by the 427th Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment, RAROK, have become a major threat to Russian armored units. A statement from the Ukrainian army indicated that the target was the Russian army's BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher system. The system had recently opened fire on Ukrainian positions, also targeting civilian residential areas. However, thanks to the rapid counter-operation by the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces, the system's position was identified and neutralized. Footage of the operation was later released by the Ukrainian army. The footage clearly shows the moment the Grad system was targeted and the subsequent explosion. Following this attack, Ukrainian forces destroyed 5 Russian tanks in a second operation carried out in the same area. Sources report that these tanks were T-72B3 and T-80U models, deployed by the Russian army for a new advance towards Donetsk. However, the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces detected and targeted these units using FPV drones equipped with thermal cameras and night vision systems. The Ukrainian General Staff emphasized that the operation was not only a tactical success but also had strategic significance. The statement included the following remarks. The systematic operations of the 427th Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment, RARAK, are weakening the enemy's offensive potential and providing the defense forces with a tactical advantage in designated sections of the front. The Russian army's armored force in the Donetsk direction has decreased by 30% in recent weeks. This will increase the chances of success for the counterattacks planned in the coming months. The success of the operation is seen as an indication of Ukraine's new strategy based on technological superiority in the war. Now, rather than classical frontline battles, the invisible war waged through drones has become decisive on the battlefield. Despite Russia's heavy armored units, air defense systems, and electronic warfare tools, Ukraine's drones appear to be able to overcome this line of defense thanks to their low altitude and high maneuverability. Ukrainian military sources also revealed that locally produced drones were used in some of these operations. Two new FPV models, known as Babak and Rarok M, can easily penetrate the upper armor of Russian tanks thanks to their high explosive warheads. Ukrainian engineers are shortening the production process by assembling these drones directly on the front lines. This allows frontline units to deploy dozens of new FPV drones to the battlefield every day. Commander of the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces, Colonel Sersky Kravchenko, said in a statement following the Donetsk operation, "For us, this is not just a tactical success, but also the most effective way to protect our manpower. Our drones allow us to neutralize the enemy without putting our soldiers' lives at risk. No matter how many tanks or artillery Russia brings in, they won't be able to keep up with our speed." These developments on the Donetsk front have also seriously disrupted the Russian army's plans in the region. Ukrainian sources report that Russian troops have been experiencing ammunition and fuel shortages in recent weeks, with many tanks breaking down before reaching the front lines. In addition, it has been reported that morale among Russian soldiers has declined, with cases of desertion and insubordination observed in some units. Analysts note that Ukraine has gradually turned the tide of the war in its favor through such operations. Thanks to the effectiveness of unmanned aerial vehicles in particular, the Ukrainian army can now gain the upper hand not only in defense but also in offense. Following these successes, the Kyiv administration plans to increase the budget allocated to unmanned systems forces. The goal is to establish an independent drone unit in each brigade. On the other hand, although the Russian side is trying to conceal its losses, images shared on social media reveal the scale of destroyed tanks and exploding ammunition convoys. Even Russian war correspondents admit that Ukrainian drones move like a deadly shadow. According to experts, these developments on the Donetsk front could herald a new strategic break in the coming weeks. If Ukraine maintains this pressure, it is thought that the Russian army may be forced to withdraw its lines in Donetsk. This would mean a major reversal on the eastern front of the war. Finally, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced that this operation is not limited to the Donetsk region and that similar attacks are planned in the Luhansk and Zaporizhia directions. This shows that Ukraine has now made its unmanned systems-based war doctrine permanent. Small but deadly drones silently gliding through the skies of Donetsk have now become one of the most effective weapons of modern warfare. Each one protects a soldier's life. Each one silences a tank, and each one is a silent but clear sign that Ukraine will not back down in this war. What do you think? Do you believe Ukraine's destruction of Russian tanks has an impact on the front lines? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read and value your opinions.